Hello, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whichever one you are. Welcome to NerdTube, your one-stop shop for anything entertainment-based. This is That Side of the Ring, dealing with the poor and awful story of Chris Kanyon. So with me today is Cousin Cheeto. How you doing, my friend?
Doing good, doing good. Excited to talk about a wrestler that I watched back in the day. I am not a current wrestling fan, but I saw plenty of Chris Kanyon back in the day, and yeah, I definitely got some huge insights into his story and what he had going on from this.
And to my right, we have the man himself, DSA. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right, man. Thanks for having me. I thought that this episode, I can't say that I enjoyed it because, it's the dark side of the ring, but it was very informative for what it was. I learned a lot about Chris Kanyon that I really didn't know because, unlike a lot of y'all, I wasn't really a WCW guy growing up. I was more of a WWF, that's right, F fan. But Chris Kanyon, I thought he was really talented from what I've seen of him anyway.
And to the bottom right, the guy with the figurines behind him, Shreddar. How you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. This was a very good episode of Dark Side of the Ring, very informative and handled the subject matter in particular extremely well. Both subject matters, for that fact, to be quite honest, the fact of Canyon's sexuality and his mental health.
I'd like to do a PSA if you guys don't mind.
Absolutely.
For those that may be struggling, because I think we might want to raise awareness to this, if you're struggling with your mental health, please reach out and talk to somebody. That's all that we can really say. Please call, hotlines, call your family, call your friends. You are not alone in this world, and I just wanted to get that out to people that may need that kind of message.
Just to back up on that, just so I can talk about my own history. I thought about committing suicide this year, and I tried to commit suicide when I was 14. And it's because of my family that I didn't and stuff like that. So there's always people out there who will support and help you and will miss you if you're gone. So always try and look out and reach out for people. Even if you think that they're not going to care or not going to miss you, they will.
Yeah.
And that's something that you need to think about.
Well said.
Okay, so this was a very there's some humorous moments, but this was a very emotional, sad episode because of this poor guy and everything he went through. So the show starts off with an introduction. It starts off with a lot of people introducing us into Chris Kanyon, the character. His real name is Chris, but I think his last name is something like, I think it's Greek or Italian or something like that. Like
Claricitis. I can't pronounce his last name.
Yeah, that's something like that.
I just call him Chris K. That's what I would call him, just to make it less confusing.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, so it goes into his start, how he got started in the business. Now, there was a couple of guys. I think was it who now is an executive for AEW, who said that he was like an executive for a couple of other wrestling programs. I'm not quite sure. He didn't quite.
He worked for the World Wrestling Federation.
Oh, he did. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, he was talking about that. You knew Chris, and that that Chris was young kid growing up, was grew up in a very Catholic influence, and the stuff like that. And he found out that he was gay when he became a teenager, and that caused a lot of problems and anxiety and stuff like that. I think there's once where they're talking about the fact that he was having some problems at school, and he just blurted out just randomly to a priest, I'm gay. And literally there was conversations about that, and he always had struggles with that side of his sexuality. So I mean, I think that is something, again, as somebody who isn't gay or bi or anything like that, it's not something that I've ever had to deal with. But I know there are people out there even today who still have to go through that sort of thing, where it is still a struggle for them. Even in 2021, it's still a struggle for them. So I think the way that they portrayed that, that sort of he had to pretend not to be gay, especially in the match show world of of wrestling. I mean, now it's a little bit different, but even so, it's still not brilliant, even in 2021.
Well, it's not just a macho world of wrestling. It's the fact that ever since a young age, there's Chris Kanyon having to suppress his sexuality because he's being taught that God will hate you for being who you are.
Mm-hmm.
God will hate you for loving the wrong kind of person.
Yeah, so the first wrestling thing that we get taught was, I think it was James Mitchell, where he said that he'd seen he'd seen Kanyon, like, I think, like wrestling, like something like either an indie promotion or like some sort of like street wrestling. From what he was saying, again, it wasn't clear, but he said that he'd seen him somewhere. That wasn't really a federation for say. It was just like something that he said, right, I'm going to get you trained, and he took him to the Fabulous Moolah, and apparently like Mae Young was really like laying into him and stuff like that. So, you know, he got taught the hard way basically, because, you know, even though they were women, you know, Moolah and Mae did not give two fucks about what they did to you in the ring.
Yeah, Moolah and Mae were like the boys, basically, in that era. They were like the boys, and they competed, you could argue, just as hard as the guys did at that time.
Yeah, so
this was mostly to get Chris broken in so that he could actually work full time, because he decided to go full time at this point, because he had been wrestling part time previously. I think he'd done some enhancement matches for the WWF. He had worked a couple of matches for ECW, the USWA. It wasn't until about, I think, again, around about 95, which is when he started training at Moolah and Mae Young School, that he decided to go full time, and that's round about afterwards where he got signed by WCW.
Yeah, because they talk about him getting signed up now. It was one of the, because again, WCW around before the NWO stuff was all like, you know, very colourful characters. So he played, from what I gather, like, you know, some sort of like builder or something like that. Like he was in a builder tag team. Like it was
Men at Work.
Men at Work. I don't know who's the other guy in Men at Work.
Mark Starr.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, so like you know, so he was there, and then all of a sudden the you know, Men at Work goes away, and then all of a sudden like the WCW introduces the very famous character Glacier, influenced by Sub-Zero from Mortal Kombat.
Cheeto's favorite wrestler of all time. Had to just throw that out there. Yeah.
I don't know if it's my favorite. I did like him though. I like that gimmick. I like the wrestler. I thought he was pretty good.
Yeah, inspired by Mortal Kombat. Go ahead.
Side note, Cheeto, have you been watching any of Wrestling Bio's videos?
Mm-mm.
Oh, he absolutely he absolutely loves Glacier.
Oh, I mean, I don't absolutely love Glacier, but back when I was like a young wrestling fan, I was in my late teens. I mean, Mortal Kombat was in, and
yep.
You know,
I don't know how much you remember about how they drew out Glacier's debut in WCW.
Yeah, they stretched it.
I remember the video package. I remember the video packages for
it. They stretched it.
Where like dark ring, and then all of a sudden
our world is about to change.
Yeah.
And this went on for months.
Didn't they stretch that shit out for like 6 months? And then like he showed up, and then it was like, what the fuck is this? And then you're like, all right then. And then Kanyon came to be Mortis based off Reptile. But go ahead, Gary.
Yeah. So then they debut Kanyon as Morbus, where he has this like awesome like skeletal mask, and he's wearing this like green like skull leading. It looks pretty awesome, to be honest with you. I'm like, if I saw this when I was a kid, I would have well been into it.
I am going to call bullshit on DDP, though, saying that it was the coolest mask gimmick ever. I disagree. Kane has that. Kane has that by far. Just because the little
Great Muta.
Yeah, Kane, Great Muta. Because Kane, for me, with
Mysterio?
Kane, yeah, Rey Mysterio. Yeah, let's show love to Rey.
I agree.
Just
it's not the greatest, but I mean, it's definitely good. But not the
it was good, but it wasn't the greatest ever.
Yeah,
so he was a very talented wrestler underneath that mask. Yeah.
So this is when they put James Mitchell, because James Mitchell comes into the picture officially on WCW television. Now, in preparation for this, I actually watched some of James Mitchell's work as James Vandenberg. Yeah, it's James Randall. But he's actually pretty decent, actually. Like, because he does this like really creepy show called the Oddity or something like that, where he
the curator of human oddities was what he was known as.
Yeah. But he does this show called the Oddity, where it's basically like Piper's Pit or something like that, and he's really good at it. It's like, oh my god, why is this not more like WCW TV? Anyway, like James Mitchell talks about the fact that at the time, because Kanyon was getting more seen on WCW television, this is one of the bits that actually made me laugh. He had to move from wherever he is. I think he's from Jersey originally, and move all the way to Memphis. So the other U-Haul, he's got a couple of his cousins with him, and like they slip, and one of the boxes explodes, and all of a sudden, all this gay porn comes pouring out onto, and I'm literally like, James Mitchell said he got a phone call from Kanyon saying, he goes, man, he goes, hey Kanyon, how you doing? He says, I need you to help me. He says, what happened? He says, my cousins helped me use a U-Haul, and it says, and all this gay porn came going out. I need you to say it was yours, and it was a trick. It's just like, hey, that's how he came out to me. I was like,
yeah,
well, that's a way to come out to somebody, isn't it?
Yeah, because Kanyon. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I love the reimagining of it. It's like, I mean, they really like played it up like this box and like all these DVDs
in slow motion.
I'm sure that's not exactly how it went, but it's kind of entertaining.
And Kanyon, he went to lengths to hide his sexuality. Like he was like, like we were saying before we came on, Shreddar was like, Kanyon would like say, "Oh, it's a work." He would try to convince people of that. Like he would try to bullshit people all the way into thinking like, "Yeah, I'm a straight dude. I'm not gay or anything like that."
Well, this is later on in his career. This is when he came out as gay in the wrestling business, and a lot of people did think it was a work, namely because Kanyon was telling them this is a work.
Yeah,
this is all a publicity stunt. But we'll get into more of that later on. But the gay porn thing, it just makes me think so much of things like, I don't know, the recent story that Cornette told about the rib that he got on an airplane, where Stan Lane would put an issue of Hustler on his tray table right in front of him instead of his people's friend. So Cornette has got his head down sleeping, and it looks like he's just staring intently at hardcore pornography. It sounds like the kind of rib that you would expect wrestlers to play, but unfortunately, this was Chris's own material.
We have learned recently that ribs on airplanes can get out of hand very quickly.
Oh
yeah.
Absolutely, but again, this did sound like the kind of thing that maybe a wrestler or some personality in the wrestling business would play on somebody, so that a box falls out and it's just full of hardcore gay porn. But obviously, again, this was Chris's stuff, and Chris, to James Mitchell's credit, I mean, he did go to lengths to help Chris out of a jam on this one, because Chris unfortunately didn't know how his family would have taken it. His family were very Catholic. They might not have taken it very well, the news that, Chris is, gay. But let's just carry on with this, Gary.
Yeah, so the next bit was just as funny, because I don't know if it was this bit or this is a little bit later on, but there's a bit where James Mitchell talks about the fact that what he would do is that he would print off all these messages and these details of these guys that he was shagging in different parts of Flavor Park, and just keep it in a black box, and keep it. Or I don't know if that was more of so when it was Kanyon. Anyway, he kept this black box full of James Mitchell's like, that's like it's keeping the waterproof tapes. You're so scared of being caught as gay. You have this black box full of this.
Didn't he say like, oh, that was some shit from like the IRS or whatever the fuck? Like he thought.
No. This was different. This was later on. I mean,
okay. I keep jumping ahead.
Right. This stuff that Chris was printing off, these were chat logs. He would go onto internet forums and he would talk with gay men. He would chat with gay men, and he would print out conversations. Now, again, this was, as James Mitchell said, it was like, Nixon keeping the Watergate tapes. If somebody ever found this, they would find out for certain,
Chris they would know.
Chris is most definitely gay.
Yep.
They would know this for absolutely certainty. Chris, though, by all accounts, was suffering from other issues as well, where he would hoard compulsively.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, he kept not just printouts of conversations he had online, but, he would keep old newspapers, he would keep boxes, he would keep old empty bottles, old food containers.
And watching this a lot. I mean, I was going to bring this up later, but watching this, I mean, he definitely formed from not only a severe case of bipolar disorder, but also schizophrenia, and that's probably one of the more tremendous cases of schizophrenia that I've seen. It's actually quite amazing that he never. He might have gotten arrested. I don't know. They didn't mention it that I heard. But like usually people with schizophrenia, they normally get arrested and then they go to, like mental institutions, or not like mental, but you know what I mean? Like psych hospitals and stuff like that. I didn't hear any talk of that in this, but there's normally and at the end, and I'm jumping ahead, but I have to get this off my chest. James Mitchell, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Sinister Minister. He said very clearly, I don't care what you got going on. I don't care what secrets you have, whatever. If you see this, get your friend's help. And he is absolutely 1000% correct.
Yes.
Your friend will hate you, but he will still be, he or she will still be alive.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it'll wreck a lot of things in their life. But if they get the help that they need, they could actually have a normal life.
Absolutely. And I think you may be onto something with the schizophrenia thing, because of the stories that Chris, would snap. He would get violent towards James Mitchell.
He would abuse him constantly.
He'd snap out of it.
We'll come to that in a minute, because that's when he becomes kind of. So basically, him and DDP work a program, and from what DDP said, says initially, that Chris Kanyon was one of his favorite people to be in the ring with, which was always awesome. But then all of a sudden, what happens? The NWO happens, and
the push is dead.
So he basically comes out into, it looked like the War Games match. Either a Steel Cage or the War Games things, and he takes off the Morbus. And you just see. He takes off the mask and he just reveals that he's Chris Kanyon. And as I said, this is when I come into the picture, because this is how I know him. I know him as Chris Kanyon, and I don't know him as Morbus, unfortunately. I didn't know that until later.
Well, the reason for the unmasking of the Mortis character is because he stopped being Mortis because he wanted to join the flock. He was trying to join Raven's group.
And didn't Raven
keep the mask on for joining Raven's group?
Yeah, and didn't Raven keep rejecting him at first until he was reluctant, and then he was like, "Okay, fine, I'll let you in," or whatever the fuck. Yeah.
Anyway, so this is when I came into the picture and I became a Chris Kanyon fan, because not only was he who's better than Kanyon, nobody. Not only that, but he was also the innovator of offense, because he used to do stuff that would make you go, bloody hell, where did he get that from? Because he used to do these spinning net breaker flaming bridges. He used to do these flaming awesome jump off the rock top drop kicks and all this sort of stuff. So this was really great. And this is unfortunately also around the time when he got a bit paranoid, because he was like upper middle cardish, I'd say, like push wise, because he was like United States champion, television champion sort of level.
I don't think he ever held any singles titles in WCW, did he?
No, the invasion. They fast forwarded a bit.
No. But what I'm saying is, where he was positioned on the WCW card was usually in that level. That sort of middle card level.
He beat out Glacier, finally.
Yep. Yeah.
Also, I just wanted to say that I always used to call Chris Kanyon the creator wrestler moveset, because all the oddball moves you've never seen actual wrestlers do,
he could do.
I saw a lot of those moves that were in the creator wrestler moveset, that you never see normal wrestlers do. Canyon's always they get those from Kanyon pretty much.
And how many of his moves do you still see wrestlers pulling off today?
Yeah, none.
Oh.
Well, no, you still see quite a few. If you pay attention, you still see quite a few. Brian Cage, for example, when Kanyon would stand on the second rope, and pick his opponent up from the outside to do a suplex to the inside. That's something Brian Cage does to this day.
Yep.
Yeah, so this is when the Bucks come in, the Young Bucks come in, and they start talking about the influence that Chris Kanyon had on them as young kids. I think they said that they were like teenagers when he was like around. So you can tell that they're really big fans. They're saying like that actually they were very supportive. Considering how conservative they are.
They were
very
surprised in this one.
I know. I've got to say kudos to Young Bucks for everything you were saying. By the way.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so this goes on, and this is when there's a bit of tension between him and James Mitchell. Like, there's one bit where he smashes. I don't know if it's a rental car or if it's James Mitchell's actual vehicle, but he actually like smashes the entire vehicle. Like, he goes around and boots the door, boots the windows, boots everything. It's just like, holy crap! Where does that come from? Just because the thing's installed?
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, but as I said, this all harkens back to nobody take this the wrong way, but I really feel like a lot of Chris's failure in life right now is because of his friends. Because and not because of like they didn't put him down this path, but I felt like they didn't get him the help he needed. And that's why I say and I implore to people that if you see this stuff, no matter what happens,
reach out
and help and get them help. I understand Chris Kanyon was a grown-ass adult, but Mitchell should have. And he didn't even have to out him as gay. Like, that gay had nothing to do with this. It was the schizophrenia and the mental health issues that you were seeing here, and it might have deflated his wrestling career at that moment. But he needed the help. I
will go to James Mitchell's defense in here on the simple fact that we're a lot more understanding about mental health issues than when Chris unfortunately was going through his issues throughout his WCW career and probably up until the final days of his life. I mean, we've learned more, for example, about what concussions are doing to pro wrestlers.
Yep.
And the mental impacts that it takes. We're still learning a hell of a lot when it comes to mental illness. A lot of this stuff would have been dismissed as just this guy is fucking crazy. Like, say, for example, Matt Dog for Sean, for example.
He lost himself.
No, but if they would have reached out to a proper professional psychologist or somebody, they would have been able to tell the signs. Like, immediately, I work with schizophrenic people. I work with people with huge mental disabilities. I mean, and I know now. I'm not, as I said, I'm not saying this. I'm not saying James Mitchell's a bad person because he didn't. I understand he didn't understand, but I'm just saying that's why it's like I really feel like that if James Mitchell would have been like, instead of pulling a gun on him, which I don't blame him. I do not blame him.
I would have. Yeah.
So yeah, we need to go because there's one bit when he literally chokes James Mitchell to the point that he blacks out.
Yeah, he passes out.
Fuck you, motherfucker, and all this sort of stuff. It's just like holy god! It's like it's like. And
you could see his bipolar when he was talking about like, oh yeah, fuck you, motherfucker, and then like 30 seconds later he's like, oh, I'm sorry, I love you. Yeah, that's a clear sign of bipolar, definitely.
Well,
is it bipolar or is it schizophrenia?
Or that is a schizophrenia part of it. Bipolar is actually where you have really high highs and you have really low lows.
Oh, okay.
And they come and go within weeks at a time. Now that dog's got schizophrenia. Jesus. Now my but oh my god, what is?
So the bipolar disorder would be things like what James Mitchell described, where Kanyon would invite him to come and stay at his house, but he would be in bed for like 4, 5, 6 days, just completely depressed. So that would be more the bipolar element, whereas the violent outbursts towards him were more schizophrenia.
Yeah,
and what I was saying is like the cocktail combination of the schizophrenia and the bipolar is what also led to those violent outbursts. Because the bipolar is not something that's just like you flip on a switch like that. That's what society tells you it is, but it's really not. It's actually, but yeah, bipolar is more like what Shred was saying is like you get long periods of lows and you get really long periods of being okay, but you're never good. So. But yeah, I mean that's. Yeah, I mean he had some severe mental health things going on. Really bad for him.
So So yeah, the bit that Jose talking about happens where he thinks he's going to choke him again. He runs over and he gets a gun. He says, "I'm going to shoot you, motherfucker!" And
I'll be right back, guys.
Okay.
Anyway, it's all right. Yeah. So then that happens, and then just like I think a lot of paranoia about like he's pushing WCW because like WCW push isn't really. I think that really happens for a lot of people, unless you Goldberg. So he gets very paranoid towards the end of it, and I'm trying to remember what exactly happens next. I know that something definitely happens when he's having this party, he's because he's made a load of money, so he has a load of parties.
Yeah.
And one of them, girls are climbing on them, and he's just not selling it at all. It's the word that
I think your friend might be gay, is what she told me.
This is actually what leads up to James Mitchell pulling the gun out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so that was the cause of that.
Now, I had heard part of this story before, which is that James Mitchell screwed a rat with the Mortis mask on. She was wearing the Mortis mask when he did it.
That I believe. Yeah, that I could believe.
Yeah, so
but I didn't know it was part of some plot to show that Kanyon wasn't gay.
Mm-hmm.
That part I didn't know.
Yeah, so this whole event leads to a sex tape where they got. I thought they said he was a prostitute, but apparently not. Where Kanyon was going to screw. They were going to make a sex tape with Kanyon in it to prove that he wasn't gay and have him screw some prostitute wearing the Mortis mask.
Yep.
How that eventuality happened, I do not know, and how that came into their minds, I do not know.
But by the way, I love the fact that James Mitchell's like, and well, nature, like, Katie didn't show up 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and he's like,
what the fuck is
nature
he?
took its course, and I'm like, she wore the mask, and then I'm like,
yeah, they just went with it, I guess. They were like, all right.
I mean, I'm
crazier.
Like, all right.
Here's the thing, though. Crazier things have happened.
I can't see that a screw a girl wearing a Mortis mask. I mean, like, if anything's going to put me ask, it's a famous skeletal mask. You know what I mean?
As long as they can't see Mitchell's face, I guess it's okay.
We're going to hell for this, aren't we?
Anyway, yeah, so that happens. Anyway, the WCW unfortunately goes out of business, and I don't think James Mitchell goes
to
WWE.
Get picked up. No, he didn't.
I don't think he got picked.
Mitchell was long gone from WCW by this point. I mean,
he was in ECW at that point, and then ECW closed.
Because he was the narrator of WCW. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
No, he was doing some intros for ECW, but he was also managing as well. He was managing Mikey Whipwreck and Tajiri.
All right, cool. So then the invasion happens, and Chris Kanyon gets put on the Alliance.
Well, you're skipping over a big chapter of Chris Kanyon's career, Gary. It wasn't just the flock end of WCW, because if you remember correctly, Chris Kanyon was the guy they put in the ring to teach people like Karl Malone and Dennis Rodman how to wrestle. He was the guy that they had doing the stunt work for Ready to Rumble.
The worst wrestling movie of all time. Sorry, Young Bucks, but it is. It's
wasn't it DDP said that everyone still likes it today? Like is not the emotion that I have for Ready for Rumble. Sorry, DDP.
I didn't like it.
It's that bad. I don't think it's the best.
Yeah,
but Kanyon was the guy they got to actually teach David Arquette how to take a bump at least.
Yep.
Look, David Arquette won the WCW World Heavyweight Championship under Chris Kanyon's tutelage. So don't disrespect David Arquette.
Yeah. I mean, in fairness to David Arquette, he was a fan, and he gave the money to Pillman's wife at the time, I think.
Pillman and Owen Hart's widows both got a share of it, but he was actually against winning the WCW title.
I was going to say, too, and in defense of David, he did. He knew that didn't make sense. He was like...
and I'm not shitting on David Arquette. I was just making the joke of Chris
and also he was a member of the New Jersey Triad, which I think it was a underrated great.
They completely fucked up and should have talked about that, because it would have been interesting to hear DDP's
he had
take on the
He
had a picture, but I would have loved to have heard more.
More about the Jersey Triad. Yeah.
Him, Kanyon, and Bam Bam all together.
Mm-hmm. That would have been cool. They kind of had a missed opportunity there.
Dude, that's a triad right there. I remember that. That's a triad that I thought could take on the NWO on their own.
Oh yeah.
Those are 3 talented dudes.
Yeah, instead they feud with the West Texas Rednecks.
Yeah.
Rap is crap.
Yeah. I mean, not to go on a tangent, but I would have booked the Jersey Triad against the whole NWO, like just the whole thing. Just have them take out the whole NWO.
Why not?
But seriously, Bam Bigelow, one of the biggest, like the most talented big men in the business. DDP, one of the most over wrestlers in the business. And then you got Chris Kanyon, who's one of the most talented at that time. Like, take out the whole NWO.
Yeah,
look at how they fucked up. Look how they fucked up a group like the Revolution. That had so much potential.
Yeah.
Shane Douglas, Chris Benoit, Perry Saturn, and Dean Malenko together.
Here's where we put in the timestamp. Hashtag WCW ruins everything.
What is that? 2000, 1999?
Yeah. Back when they were getting their asses kicked on a weekly basis.
Yep. I'm trying to remember what. I think because I'm trying to remember what else Kanyon did, because he did some other stuff as well. Because he did the no one's better than Kanyon stuff and all that sort of stuff.
Champagne Chris Kanyon.
Yeah.
He would impersonate DDP.
And I was like, ooh.
No one.
Yep.
I mean, how long did that even last?
What, Champagne Chris Kanyon?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
It went on for a while, I think. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, no one bought into it. But everyone bought into it.
They also did mention Kanyon taking the bump off the cage. Now, I wish they had maybe mentioned what arena that bump was in and how
because it was
okay. Where was it? Where was it? Because I was the WWF guy, so I don't know any of this shit.
The Kemper Arena in Kansas City.
Yeah,
Get
the fuck out of here!
The day after Owen Hart fell to his death.
Get the fuck out of here! Are you for real?
I'm for real.
How the fuck am I? How the fuck am I today years old and I'm just now finding out about this? Like, this is history making for me. Like, I'm just
the day after Owen Hart died.
No, it was almost a year to the day.
Oh,
it was almost 1 year to the day that Owen Hart fell from that ceiling.
And Russo was there during this. I know he had to be. He was had to be.
He was booking it right there.
That's why. Russo's a fucking jackwagon.
Anyway.
I'm going to need a minute, y'all. Whoa. Okay, go ahead. It's going to take me a minute to process this.
So WCW unfortunately goes out of business and the invasion angle happens and WWE picks up a lot of WCW talent. Chris Kanyon is one of them. And so at first, he actually starts off running because he wins, I think he wins the tag titles and he also wins the United States title.
No, Booker T gave him the United States title. Booker T was the U.S. and WCW. So he didn't even bloody win it? No, he didn't win it. Yeah. But titles meant nothing by that point anyway. You could argue, well, at least WCW title didn't really mean much of anything. But all right.
Yeah, so yes, he starts off and he's a pretty good wrestler there and stuff like that. And then, I think he get something in my brain tells me that he gets injured not too long into it. The invasion angle.
He got squashed for the WWF tag belts. Him and DDP got squashed by Kane and the Undertaker.
Yep. I remember that. They got squashed and they got beat in a cage match, if I remember right. And that was one of the last times I think we saw Kanyon. Yeah,
they pretty much got no offense in.
Yeah.
He was there briefly as the Alliance MVP. He got hurt. He spent a lot of time in developmental as well.
Still wasn't worse than fucking Undertaker and Kane versus Chronic.
Oh, God, no.
Yeah, but I don't think that was Chronic's fault, to be honest with you. But, yeah, well, that's a conversation for a different day.
Yep.
Anyway, this is where, he's off television for a bit. And then it comes back in... I've got a... Now,
I remember this. I can help you if you need it because I was watching WWE.
No. This is the bit that made me just go, oh dear. Because right, anyone can tell me that WWE were going, no, we didn't know he was gay. Subtlety isn't really Vince McMahon's forte. So he comes up dressed like Boy George in a box.
Yeah,
in front of the Undertaker
and singing. With an exaggerated version of his lisp,
which he
Do you
hates.
really want to hurt me?
Yeah.
So you got Kanyon go out there again. He's got a lisp naturally, but it's turned up to 11,
And this is
and
where
he's going. Do you really want to hurt me?
me? Yeah. And this is where people are going to be divided because you're going to have some people say, "Oh,
some
WWE
people
buried
love it.
Kanyon." Yeah, you're going to have some people that'll say they love the segment. You're going to have those that say that they buried Chris Kanyon, which I know we'll be getting into here in a little bit. But yeah, I personally didn't really think much of that segment because the Undertaker and Big Show feud in 2003 just didn't do it for me. I was one of those that was like, okay, we've seen Taker and Big Show before. This is nothing really interesting to me anyway.
Cheeto?
It was also weird because when I was watching this segment, and I did not, this is about the time I fell out of wrestling.
Mhm.
So I fell out of wrestling from like 2001 to like 2004. I think I came back when Benoit and Guerrero were getting
When they won the titles.
Yeah, that's when
2004,
I
yeah.
started coming back. But there was a couple year period when I was out of it. And truth be but it said that I don't know who was in the interview saying, I want to say it was James Mitchell, but he was saying that the Undertaker really liked Kanyon.
Yeah, he was high on Kanyon.
It wasn't Mitchell that said it. It was the guy.
It was the guy that worked there. Yeah,
it was the producer that said that Undertaker was high on Kanyon. He really liked him,
and so was Paul Heyman. But they were both in the segment, and they really buried Kanyon. So
on that chair shot,
yeah.
Thank God. Let me just say before you go on, Gary. Thank God they don't do this kind of stuff anymore. I'm actually glad that they don't with the chair shots.
I mean,
thank God we don't see that now.
How tall was Chris Kanyon? About what, 6'2", 6'3", maybe?
Yeah, and Taker like waffled him with that chair.
6'10", like just cracked him, and literally the guy
6'4".
Yeah, 6'4". Okay, but he waffled him.
I find it funny that even the Undertaker, who had a lot of stroke back then, if he was high on Kanyon,
why'd you hit him so hard the way you did?
No, not even the chair shot. Like the whole segment. Why would you do that?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it does. As I said, and you got one of you guys even said it. Vince does nothing subtle. This feels like a hit job on Kanyon's character, like on his character, like on the screen.
Yeah, not Kanyon the person, just to clarify.
Yeah, because supposedly he was also told to go out there and sing like a faggot.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I do start to think that somebody knew, figured out he was gay,
and they
didn't like it. They buried him.
Don't out yourself because this is what we're going to do to you. And they didn't even really need to do that. I mean, all they could have done was just point out, well, the Billy and Chuck gimmick.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they go through, because the books and I think a couple of people go through, if you're a gay person in wrestling, not if you're a gay person in wrestling, but if you're portrayed as gay,
they're going to out you, and they're going to
so they go through like Goldust, to go through like Goldust George, Adrian Androlis,
Adrian Street,
all these guys who were not gay, but they were
portraying gay characters
effeminately. Like Billy and Chuck is just like, it's like, and then it's like, I wonder why Chris Kanyon really didn't want to come out.
Yeah, Rico too.
Yeah, seriously. Like, see, and this is the thing that frustrates me. It's just like, you can't just let people be themselves. Like, I feel like Chris Kanyon would have been so much better of a character if we just let him. Like, he was a great wrestler, but he was always very withdrawn and timid on the mic and everything because he was afraid to be himself. If we let him be himself, I feel like we would have gotten such a better Chris Kanyon.
You also have to remember, too, though, during that time, that was the start of the verbatim era. That was when they were like, now we're not going to give you guys as much leeway unless you're a top dude. You kind of can't go out there and say anything you want, which is bullshit, I know. But I think that's what they were doing to Kanyon was like, dude, you can't be you. You got to be this kind of character.
Well, but I also think it's his upbringing with the paranoia and the schizophrenia and him being gay. Mm-hmm. I think he really legitimately, and I believe most of the people, even DDP didn't know. So like, I believe that there were a lot of people who didn't know, but I feel like somebody did find out in production, and that's why they did that whole segment burying him. And which is a guy. And if I ever find out who did build,
they're a piece of shit. That's all that needs to be said.
Well, it's one guy. We all know who it is. It's Vince McMahon because he's the one who.
No, because
but who ratted him?
Who ratted him to Vince? That's the guy we're talking about.
Hey, Kanyon's gay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no.
Who
But
told
also,
him?
I'm saying like who walked up to him and said, "Hey, we want you to play this like a faggot." Like whoever that is, fuck you. You
Yeah.
know, like
Absolutely.
yeah, like you know what? Whether he knew he was gay or not, you know, if that was the middle person, you just it's
something you don't
mean
do.
and it's stupid and it's just the wrong. Like, I could get into it, but
I mean, well, let's be honest. The portrayal of gay people in wrestling has never ever been good at all. I mean, it took sorry, not Orlando Jordan. It took Darren Young coming out, just casually coming out as gay, and he was never punished for it. They never made him like an aggressively, overtly predatory homosexual like they have done with so many other gimmicks. I mean,
all that really happened
kissing
was
people in the ring,
Yeah.
Gold Dust
filling
fondling
up on
Razor
guys.
Ramon.
Yeah. But all that really happened with Darren Young was they started getting wins, and that was about as far as they got. Was like they got wins, they got a tag title match, they lost, and
well, but
after
here's the
that,
thing, I would much
kinda
rather
it.
that because you know what,
Yeah.
your sexuality should not drive whether you're pushed or not. Whether
Exactly.
you're talented in and out, you know, in and on the mic and everything should determine that.
But you notice gay men were always portrayed as heels, and yet it was never the same when it came to women. So you would have women kissing each other. That was fine. They were still baby faces. You had, I think the only time I honestly think of where women have been portrayed as, heels when it came to sexuality, one was probably Dawn Marie when they did that whole
when they did the lesbian angle.
Yeah, they did the lesbian angle with Tori Wilson where she was aggressively pursuing Tori Wilson. And the other being Mickey James's initial run as a stalker of Trish Stratus.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
well, and I don't mind. Sorry, Gary. I know you're trying to move on, but I
no, I'm not trying to move on. So
I mean, I don't mind there being heel gay people, even, but it's like what? Yeah, but you're right. Like the trend was always, you know, for
you're a heel.
Yeah, like I mean, all that stuff. And even here's the thing with Goldust. The funny thing is that I felt back then when I was watching, it was a goofy gimmick to me. Like it wasn't homosexual. It was just a goofy gimmick.
It felt just more creepy than gay.
Yeah, it felt weird. Like when you watch Goldust, you would think bizarre. Like because Vince used to always say the bizarre one, and that really struck out with me with Goldust back then.
Yeah, and the thing with Goldust was just like, but I felt like he was over with the fans. Like
he was.
And not only remember that, he had this beautiful statuesque blonde with him as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So what was his deal?
Yeah,
that's the thing. But let it be
ambiguous.
Yeah, let it be ambiguous. Come on. I mean, but that's what I'm saying. Like, like they try, and you're right. Vince McMahon would always put, do the bizarre one. He wants everyone to think that Goldust is bizarre because he's being weird with men and women, and it's like, just stop.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I think this is like one of his final matches before he gets let go by WWE. And this, I think he goes down to OVW to help train new guys though, because Jim Cornette has talked about. I think it was when he was talking about that to that side producers about the fact that he went down to OVW and he would help them out and he would help new guys out because he did that indie style but made it look good when he did it.
Well, not just that, he'd worked at the power plant as well. He was
he was a good trainer.
As a trainer.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So so one of the guys he trained, who's also in this, is Brian Cage, who's now in AEW. But he said that Chris helped me out, and he put me over in some no place town in Flaming Small place. He put me over, and it's like, oh, that was awesome of him to do that. It's just because apparently he likes to put people over in their hometown and stuff like that. I think
we're probably going to hear that as well in the episode. I don't know if the next one's Bruiser Bedlam, but we will probably hear that similar story in the Bruiser Bedlam episode about how Randy Savage put over Bedlam in Smoky Mountain.
Cool. So
you get quite a few guys who were very giving like that. Some veterans who were prepared to say, hey, I don't need to win. This is this guy's hometown. He's the top draw here.
Owen Hart did that for Bob. Owen Hart did that for Bob Holly in '99 when they went to Mobile.
Yeah, and as long as you make it in a billing sense, as long as you make it believable, like an out of nowhere roll up, or they just happen to catch their finisher on them out of nowhere,
It works.
it works. Like you can't, like, I mean, that's what I always hated about Stone Cold and The Rock. It's like, you'd hit them with your finisher once or twice, and they still wouldn't stay pinned. Like, it always drove me nuts. But it's like, whenever like a hometown hero would get over on like one of the big names or something like that, I always loved that. And it didn't have to be like a finisher finish. It could be, he slips behind him, roll up, 1, 2, 3, like those were always my favorite.
He steals what as I say, yeah.
Yeah, or some heel fucks fucks this huge megastar babyface out of a win.
Yeah.
Yeah, so and the book said that this is when they first meet Kanyon, face to face, and like he's nothing but nice and kind to them and stuff like that. And he said like because they were a huge fan of his and stuff like that. He said, but they said they started being friends with him and stuff like that, and like they got his phone number and stuff like that. He said he was nothing but helpful to them and stuff like that. I was like, do you know what? This was kind of, I mean, because sometimes the books can be a bit overbearing, but this was them good enough all clear my eyes. Then I'm not sure when this happens. I think it's 2004, 2005 when he goes to a show with DDP and he comes out live to a crowd. And I think that
this was 2006.
Yeah, because it's going to all tie in with the Howard Stern thing you're about to talk about here in a minute. Yeah,
2004 is when Benoit and Guerrero won
the titles,
the world titles. And WrestleMania 20, when they're after they're celebrating in the ring, that's when Kanyon jumps the rail and hops into the ring.
Yeah, and they were like,
"What the fuck's going on here?"
Yeah, and then they invited him to the WrestleMania after party. And then
they said, "Yeah, I'm apparently told Vince McMahon, yeah, I'm glad you invited me here after
even though he fired me." Yeah. And then didn't he go to talk to Stephanie, and then like he was like, "Hey, I want you to look into this, this, and this," and then she's like, "Oh, okay, well, we'll get back to you," but they never did.
No, that's later. So
that's later on. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
He wrote a letter to Stephanie McMahon.
Oh, okay.
So he comes out in this like small, and again, this was the first time that I'd personally heard that he was gay because I never did. And I don't care. But the thing is that he came out to everybody. He came out to Brian Cage, who said I was a little bit bummed for a little bit, but then I was like, "Wait, doesn't change."
Who the fuck cares? Yeah, because that was the majority of their attitudes. They were like, "So." Yeah, you're gay. Okay, then. All right, life goes on.
Yeah, and they're like, yeah, so we don't care. And it's like it was like this massive weight off him. I feel, but he still kept that weight a little bit. So he then, after he comes out as gay, goes on.
Well, before you move on past that, just like his friends, even was it Cage who said that. He was kind of like, oh.
Yeah, he was kind of pissed off at first, and then he was like, oh, okay, wait a minute.
You know what? And I don't, and I want to spotlight that only because it's okay to be like something outside of your norm. You're like, oh, but then as long as you rectify the idea of thinking, wait a minute, this doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And I'm glad he was honest about that because it's like, if it were me back then, I'd be the same way. I mean, I won't say it was a homophobe, but it was kind of something that I wasn't used to dealing with at that point. So if one of my friends came out to me and said, "Look, I'm gay," that's what I would have been like. I would have been like, "Oh."
You would have been like, "Oh," and then you're like, "Wait a minute, how the fuck does this affect me?"
It doesn't really matter, but okay. Yeah. But it's just something I hadn't had to deal with in my life at that point. So just because somebody at first is like, "Oh," that doesn't mean that they're homophobe.
Yeah, they're just like, "Oh, okay, yeah, all right."
And then it just. Sometimes when people deal with new things, they have to wrap their minds around it. So
yeah, you have to process it.
I'm glad the guy was honest about it, where he was like, at first he was like, "Oh, really?" And then he's like, "You know what? This doesn't fucking matter."
Yeah.
The more I think about it, the more it doesn't matter. So I'm glad that they did mention that because that is a thing. People who don't grow up around this kind of thing, it is a little shocking for them. But at the same time, it's like, you got to give them time to process, and then hopefully in the generations to come, this will just be normalized, and we won't have to do this anymore.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, so he goes on Howard Stern a couple of times. First time he talks about, I think he talks
being
about
gay and all that.
Yeah, the rest of being gay. He talks about he thinks that's the reason he was let go when he was buried and blah blah blah. And I was like, And then John Cena. when it goes on the Flaming Show and starts saying, "Oh well, Chris Kanyon was never good enough. He didn't really have to sit." I was like saying, "This isn't
He
the same
wasn't
Chris Kanyon
entertaining
that
enough.
I."
Yeah, he
in
wasn't.
WWE.
Yeah, he's like, well, he could wrestle really well, but he cuts
just a
off
guy
on
in
the E part.
tights.
Yeah, he was just a guy in tights. Like he didn't, he could wrestle really well, but you got to entertain the people, and Canyon never knew how to entertain the people.
Which
Basically,
is
is what Cena said, which is
Well,
which I call bullshit.
Yeah, I call
And
bullshit.
then, and then we're about to get ready to go into a rant here in a minute because you want to talk about. I'm going to go ahead and.
Well, just before
before
we get into the next person that called in on Howard Stern. Again, Cena, I think, was definitely towing a company line at that point. I mean, the fact is, let's be perfectly blunt. He says that the Kanyon debuted as Mortis, and that was cool. But then he comes to WWE, and he's Chris Kanyon. He's a guy in tights. Well, he'd been Chris Kanyon in WCW for 3 years before that, and he'd been, extremely well liked, very, very popular, an over wrestler. I mean, that's why he was picked up. He was one of the crew that was picked up when the WCW buyout happened.
Yeah.
I agree. Like, I mean, from Cena, that's utterable. Usually John Cena, and I'll give John Cena a lot of credit when it comes to him being a human being, as he being a really good guy. But as a wrestler, I hate him.
Yeah.
But I mean,
the 5 moves of doom.
And it's not even sometimes his fault. It's the way the company books him. I get it. Okay. But this was a real moment where I was like, wow, this guy,
he said that? Yeah.
He's a dick. Yeah. Like, at least at this point in his life.
But then also remember at what stage he was at in his career at that point.
He was king shit. He was the top guy. He was untouchable.
Well, what he was really? I mean, at 2006, he wasn't completely untouchable, but WWE was grooming him as their top guy. This is the guy that's going to be, running the company for the next.
This is actually, this is like before. This is before he became poster boy, because summer of 07 is when they really made him poster boy, and y'all know why.
He was still the poster boy.
Yeah, but 07 was when it really took off for a lot of people.
The five moves of doom. Yeah.
But one thing I want to bring up though with Cena is the fact that and Canyon's firing is, I honestly feel like somebody saw the signs of his mental health also, and I felt like they were just like, maybe we need to bury this guy and get rid of him and get because he might become a problem.
Yeah.
Or was it also, again, just the fact that Kanyon was relegated to Velocity at that point? Was this just another case of creative has nothing for you?
I mean, no disrespect, but let me just state this. Your career is over pretty much in WWE when you're jobbing to Funaki, and no disrespect to Funaki, but he was the lowest of the low at that time. If you talk to a lot of people,
because WWE like to take WCW stuff
and bury him,
and turn it not even people, just like the gimmick of who's better than, because even Funaki's like, who's better than Kanyon? Funaki is better than Kanyon. WWE loves to take that.
In fairness, that was the response when he said it in WCW. Who better than Kanyon? Everyone, people would shout, "Everyone!"
Yeah, everybody. Yep.
Well, but I just feel like that was WWE basically saying, "Yeah, we're shifting you out."
Yep. But now here we go to the highlight of the episode, at least for me.
So anyway, he comes on again, and this time the Nature Boy himself, Ric Flair,
here we go.
To shit on him. Now,
you want to talk about buried? This
2 weeks in a row we're gonna shit on Ric Flair.
This is capital BURIED. You would think God himself crapped on Chris Kanyon with the way Ric Flair just flat out destroyed him while he was talking to him. And Ric Flair was Chris Kanyon's idol when he was a kid. I'm like, man, dude, what the fuck, Rick?
Saying goes, never meet your heroes.
Yeah, don't ever meet your heroes, because at the end of the day, you're going to be let down. But man, okay, I'm going to say this about Rick. In ring, he's one of the best to ever do this fucking gig. He's one of the greatest characters of all time. But as a person, I have absolutely no respect for Richard Flair at all. I hope to God I would never meet that guy. I hear he's an asshole to most people.
Well, we should point out that Ric Flair has actually addressed this on social media. He has posted to Twitter. in response to the confrontation on the Howard Stern show, he said, "Breaks my heart to hear later on that he took this so hard. Calling into guests that were seen as hostile to WWE was part of the job then. I should not have said that nobody had ever been released. There's no way I could have known that for sure. I was holding the company line. Love is love is love is love, and everyone should be able to love whoever and however they choose without fear of reprisal. I wasn't a huge Kanyon fan as a worker, but Chris was a hell of a good guy."
Oh, but the way
However,
but
went
the
on
way
to
you,
say,
oh,
next week on Dark Side of the Ring, Ric Flair and Caitlyn Jenner were both born in 1949. Coincidence or something more?
and man, Rick, like, what the fuck? Like, when I first heard Rick say that, I'm like, to me, it sounded like Rick was just burying Chris as a person. Like, he was like, I'm disappointed in him as a person. I was like, damn. Don't
Is
you
there
think
ever
you're
any hope of
stretching
him
it?
getting back into WWE? I mean, Flair could have been extremely democratic on this one, or diplomatic, I should say, and said, hey, there's always that possibility. Vince McMahon is known for forgiving people.
Yeah. If I were AEW, though, I would not touch Ric Flair with a 10-foot pole,
and
at least right now.
I'm going to play devil's advocate here with WWE. So y'all get ready to hate me. But here's the thing is that Chris Kanyon came out and literally said that he was fired by the WWE for being gay, which on the surface, I understand. On the surface is not true. Mm-hmm. So do I agree with Ric Flair how harsh he was? No, but at the same time, Kanyon was making some false accusations there.
Yeah, Kanyon was talking some bullshit at the same time.
Some bullshit. But that also goes back to his mental health issues.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to say a couple of things. First of all, I like the fact that 2 weeks in a row, Ric Flair's basically had to do damage control because of Dark Side of the Ring.
Yeah, fuck Ric Flair. That's all that needs to be said.
Yeah, 2021 is fuck Ric Flair year.
Yep.
But secondly, the thing is that no person for WWE can tell me that at least him being gay was at least part of it. Because like you don't have the guy literally come out there and singing, "Do you really want to hurt me?" dressed like Boy George, unless someone knows he's gay. I'm sorry.
Well, it depends. Was that a message to him to tell him, don't come out of the closet, stay in there?
It literally comes out of the closet.
And you want to know the fucked up thing? The thing is, we'll never truly know. I don't think we'll ever find that out.
Yeah, so, but as I said,
there's a bit of confusion though with the timeline though about what were WWE intending to do, because Chris had told people that he was gay, but he'd also told a lot of journalists and radio personalities that no, this was actually a publicity stunt. Although he just wanted to portray a positive gay role model, but he wasn't actually gay himself. When we absolutely know now that he was 100% a homosexual.
But at the time, 15 years ago, that's something that not a lot of us knew.
But he, as far as he was concerned, this was his way of basically doing like a Billy Gunn style gimmick. Where he's portraying a gay person on TV or in wrestling promotions, but he's saying himself, I'm not personally gay myself.
Yeah.
They talk about Orlando Jordan, and supposedly Chris took issue with the fact that Orlando Jordan was going to be portrayed as a positive gay role model.
And he never was, to my knowledge. I don't think
he was a little bit.
He was never outed in WWE. Orlando Jordan did not go public with his sexuality until after he left the company.
Yeah, they had actually pitched, I think, Orlando Jordan like being kind of like that gay intern to JBL, but I don't think they ever got that far with it. Like,
because this is after the whole JBL's
like in 2000. Like, okay, I remember in 2005 when he was working with Benoit, he had pitched an idea. I think Jordan had pitched it himself to come out like as gay or whatever and go from there. But we never knew anything after that, and nothing ever materialized.
I think he's biased.
I don't know if that was maybe the ultimate plan for the storyline where Vito started cross-dressing because Orlando Jordan had said he spotted him out in drag in a UK tour.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think he was bi from what I've got, but I think they did mention.
Orlando Jordan was bi.
Orlando was bi.
He is bi, and apparently the reason he was fired, Orlando Jordan was fired for just bringing people backstage that he shouldn't have been.
Yeah.
Now, there's conflicting stories about whether or not these people may or may not have been underage. We won't get into that, because again,
that's another story.
The stories are conflicting. That may be a future Dark Side of the Ring episode at some
the Dark
point.
Side of the Ring on Orlando Jordan coming soon.
And unfortunately, when Orlando Jordan did use his sexuality as part of a gimmick, unfortunately, it did veer more towards the sinister side again as a heel. Because if you remember, he was wearing stickers of Rob Terry's face on his nipples.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yep. I unfortunately remember that.
And he was saying things like, "Oh, this will be our little secret."
Yep.
Which Lance Storm brought it up at the time, as the fact that Rob Terry would basically be beating up somebody as a hate crime. He's just beating up this guy purely for being. Is that the gimmick? Is he beating up Orlando Jordan purely for being gay? And when he's saying things like, "Oh, this will be our little secret," it comes across extremely sinister and creepy, much like a lot of the sex scandals that had been coming out in the press at the time, where coaches had been molesting young boys and saying, "This will be our little secret."
Oh, yeah, I remember when the Penn State thing happened all those years ago, and that was just, oh, man.
Anyway, so basically, Kanyon, I think from what they were saying, had kind of burnt his bridges to WWE because he kind of like, I think for the thing you just saying about like you jumped the rail at WWE events and like we trying to get them to notice him, so kind of that might have played into it, and also like there's a bit when James Mitchell said that he come over and he's still major into his mental health struggles and stuff like that. And I think this is around the time when he was talking about like he wanted to end everything, and it's just like this had been coming for a couple of years. And like
the one thing you could see when you look at DDP and James Mitchell and all them when they started talking about like toward the end, they knew, like they were like, we know he's not going to be around here much longer.
Well,
like DDP knew.
Kanyon had also been public about his suicide attempts before that. I don't know if you remember the Benoit tragedy.
Yeah, in 07, 08, he was talking about. Yeah,
Kanyon went public with that and said that in 2003 he tried to kill himself.
Yep. Yeah.
So
and they omit, and like I felt like they did omit quite a few things about the end of his life, but like nothing in particular, but like I felt like there was some missing information there while watching it.
Yeah, there was something that just did not seem right when they talked about the end. Like I'm like, okay, what?
They almost breezed over it from what I could tell.
Yeah.
I mean, like him talking about, the during the Benoit stuff and everything like that. Like I feel like that's information that they probably should have put out there.
Yeah.
If they are doing a documentary, Chris Kanyon, could have been, an advocate for, this kind of mental health stuff. And like, it's just, they just didn't even really mention it.
Yeah, I mean, because the books mentioned the fact that, like, I think it was Matt Jackson.
Matt was about to take a shower.
Yeah. It said that it's about that basically Kanyon phoned him up and was basically like crying and said like I need your help. I'm struggling here. Blah blah blah. He said like one of the people that I looked up to in the business is there like crying on the shoulders and I'm trying to help him out and stuff like that. It's just like, God, I wish I could. They're going. Both of the books were saying, I wish there's something that we could have done for it. And it's just one of those things where you could tell from what they were saying, that they wish that they could have helped this guy. And like, James Mitchell, like basically said, he was saying that he was talking about the whole, when Shreddar was talking about before, where he threw himself in front of a car.
Yeah, he was like, dude, what the fuck? Like that was his kind of reaction.
But he also got stories about how much of a generous and caring person he was. I mean, not just throwing parties, but when Luke Hawx lost everything in Hurricane Katrina,
he invited him to live with him.
Reach out to him and said, "Look, you can stay with me as long as you need to.
No charge.
No charge at all. No charge whatsoever." Now, Luke did take him up on that offer, I believe, at one point. And that's when
Kanyon was going through his depressive episodes. Then
he was going through his depressive episodes, and that's where we get to the point where he's got the IRS papers that you were talking about.
Yep.
And he had these all over the floor. And he said he was doing his tax returns, and actually what he was doing was just taking multiple different IRS audit notices and just rearranging them. You have them out on the floor, and he was just rearranging all these different notices from the IRS that he was going to be audited.
So quick question about that though. Like, so was he being audited for a reason, or was it just an audit? Like,
I think I think it was a case of because
he like wasn't
remember,
paying
wrestlers are
taxes?
independent contractors. They have to file their own tax returns. Kanyon probably fell behind during one of his depressive episodes, so it's very possible
didn't file.
very
So
plausible
that
he would
just
be
did
audited.
not help his depression.
Yeah, in a way
Yeah, exactly.
further derailed him. It didn't
Yeah.
help.
It's
And
like
that's
when
what
you
I
hear
thought.
people who have got manic depression, and the bills just pile up and pile up and pile up, and they they may even have the money in the bank to pay them off, but it's just it gets on top of them, and it becomes absolutely soul crushing and depressing.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yes, so I think James Mitchell talks about the last time, which is at that Mickey was that the Mickey
Whipwreck show, yeah.
Yeah. That he got on the plane, like I literally cried all the way down, and his wife said, what's up?" He says, "I think he's really going to do it this time."
They knew
because they had a proper heart to heart. They were laughing like old friends. I think Kanyon had gone to yell at him, and he just stopped, and they hugged each other, and they started talking like old friends. There was no incident of Kanyon elbowing Mitchell while they were driving along in the car. There was no physical altercations. There were no violent outbursts. It was all fun times, happy stories.
Mhm. Same thing with DDP, because DDP recalled his story, and he was like, he looked in his face, and he was like, I knew Kanyon wasn't going to be around that much longer.
It's
Like DDP just had that premonition. Yeah.
It's like he wanted to just make peace with everybody.
Yeah, before he died.
Yeah, so I think it's about James Mitchell said that he phoned him up like every day for 10 weeks or something like that, and he said I couldn't get hold of him, and then 6 weeks somebody phoned him up. I think it was like a relative or something. Said,
I think it was
he's
his
got.
brother.
Yeah, said phoned him up and said he's gone. It's just like I was just like.
Yeah, you don't want to wake. And the worst part is he woke up to that news because he was like, okay, someone's calling me at 6 a.m. That can't be good.
Yeah.
Because you never want to get a call that early in the morning.
And it was when he said, it was one of those things, and then you see that, he said that, but Kenyon might be gone, but his influence is still around, and you see like Brian Cage, the Bucks, everybody doing like moves that he did, the corner splash into the corner and stuff like that, and like all that sort of stuff. It's just like he's still here, and then like the one bit that made me get emotional was when Brian Cage does something. You see Chris Kanyon done it, and then he turns to the camera, goes, "Who's better than Kanyon?" Literally to camera, I was like. I got all emotional about that. Yeah,
I just have to say though, my heart goes out to James Mitchell because of all the people in this documentary. You could tell Canyon's death really ate away at him, and it looks like it still does to this day. Like
same with Page. He looked like he was
same.
Luke Hawx was another one.
Luke Hawx, because it looked like this is one of those where it's like they're never going to get over this. Like for me, it was when we lost Owen. Like Owen's been gone for 22 years, almost 23 years. AEW is about to honor him, hurrah. But I still haven't gotten over Owen. Like for those of us, there's passings that in life we'll never truly get over. And I believe they're never going to get over Chris Kanyon. It's just sad that he's not here anymore with us.
I'm so thankful Jericho's contributions were kept short in this one.
Yeah.
Perfectly blunt.
Can I just say something? And again, this is mean. This is me being mean. But my God, has Chris Jericho put on weight?
God, let's not go there.
Yeah, let's not go there for this. We can discuss that another time.
But I do think that he did deserve some insights because I do know that he worked with Kanyon while he's in.
He worked with Kanyon a little bit in WCW, and also during the Invasion angle.
Yeah,
but let's be honest. Again, I'm so happy that Chris Jericho's contribution was kept short. In this one.
Yeah,
especially after the fallout of the previous episode of Dark Side of the Ring and Jericho forgiving Tommy Dreamer, and Jericho in general as a human being is he gives a lot of money to charity, but then he comes out with things like All Lives Matter.
Yeah, Jericho will say some crazy shit.
Okay, well, but I mean, with James Mitchell, I mean, yeah, you're right that this will definitely, it definitely seems like it's eating away at all of them.
Yep.
I just, my biggest gripe with these guys though is that why didn't they get him help? Like, I don't understand. Like, I mean, maybe you guys can shed a different light on it, but why did they not get Chris Kanyon help?
Yeah, because now that you think about it, it's like, did you see the signs? I mean, it would have been obvious for James.
Mitchell
No,
saw
not.
the signs.
Yeah, but it's like, you see the signs. Why didn't you try to say anything? They never touched on that.
And I'm not saying it was malicious. I'm not saying that it was, they didn't get him help on purpose. I wonder why.
But there's something there, and it's like
you see things like this.
Well,
yeah.
I'm going to say from my point of view, sometimes you feel that person needs to look and decide themselves to get that help, and I think that just maybe they didn't feel that he would listen to them, because I'm sure there's conversations they had with him where they say, look, you need to go and get help for this. I would just keep going on.
I think we were beyond conversations at this point.
It's like, dude, you have to get help.
Did they should have sectioned him or something?
Because James Mitchell was extremely, extremely tolerant to the shenanigans.
The fact that James Mitchell pulled a gun on the man says a lot right there. Yeah. That says a lot.
I'm sorry. James Mitchell was very tolerant, and God bless James Mitchell's soul. As I said, he was very tolerant and very understanding to Chris Kanyon's condition.
Yep.
But the thing is that James Mitchell didn't help him by doing that.
Yeah.
I've got my own thoughts on this, one of which is, well, if you think about the position what the profession was that Kanyon was involved in, it's full of a bunch of guys who want to prove that they're macho. A lot of meatheads, a lot of guys who just have the mindset of, well, just man up. I mean, guys who, call each other pussies, for not working through a physical injury. How do you think they're going to respond to somebody who's suffering from a mental injury?
And that's why I'm saying I don't necessarily hold it against them, because you're right. It is the business they're in. And if maybe somebody who was outside of the ring would have noticed more, so I mean, but I feel like Mitchell had and you're right, but Mitchell was the guy was getting choked to this was a domestic issue. Like, they aren't in a relationship, but it was a domestic issue. Like, they were very close friends. They lived together. And here's Chris Kanyon choking him until he blacks out, to the point where he had to have a gun in the right place so that he could defend himself. So it's like,
but how would some corners of a locker room react? And if James Mitchell had maybe filed a police report or had Chris Kanyon committed to a psychiatric unit over all these actions that he committed, are they going to say that, well, James Mitchell's a pussy, James Mitchell's a rat, James Mitchell, is not someone you can trust in this locker room?
Well,
is that how he would have been treated?
Maybe Chris Kanyon would still be alive today.
Maybe he would be.
Yeah.
Because, as I said, this isn't, and they didn't really talk too much about, I don't know if he had many drug addictions or anything like that.
They
mentioned that he used steroids when he was suffering from his major shoulder injury.
Yeah, but I mean,
in general.
Yeah, in general, because they did say he overdosed, but I mean, I don't know if it was because he was doing a lot of narcotics, and stuff like that.
Yeah, they never got into that.
Yep.
So, I mean, I really feel like that. And as I said, I know it's weird for me to sit here and say, God bless James Mitchell, but at the same time, why didn't somebody get him help? And I understand, Shred, where you're coming from, where you're like, and especially back in the mid 2000s, late 90s, probably when this first started.
Yeah.
When James Mitchell probably noticed the first signs, possibly. I don't remember the time frame, but just if sometime, and as I said, Chris Kanyon's career, you're right, might have been over, but
no, I'm not thinking so much Chris Kanyon's career, but I mean, even say James Mitchell. If James Mitchell had Kanyon committed to a mental institution, what's going to happen to James Mitchell? Is he going to get blacklisted from the entire industry? Is he going to get branded a rat, a liar, a weasel?
But I would hope that they would look at the circumstances, and again, it's wrestling. I get it. Well,
yep.
But I hope they would look at it and say, you know what, James Mitchell did what was best for Chris Kanyon at that point.
Yeah.
I mean, look, in fairness, just look at things like the way the wrestling business responded to things like domestic battery. I mean, we would be appalled nowadays if we heard that a wrestler had been smacking his wife around. They looked the other way for so many years, even going into the mid 2000s.
Oh, yeah. The 2010s is when all this shit really started. That's when people really started waking up.
It's only the last 10 years we're now finally seeing a positive response against people who are committing domestic assault.
Yep.
So
Yeah, I mean, and I know. I've heard the stories recently about Stone Cold and the
Yep.
with
I
Deborah
heard those
not just
stories.
everyone. Michael is his first wife, his English wife, has also come out and
said that he hit her.
and that makes perfect sense.
And then the Jimmy Snuka thing too. The same thing with his
Absolutely.
girlfriend. That's something that we're never going to know the truth of. But
was it Jimmy Snuka who murdered somebody, or was
Yes, that's what I'm talking about.
It was Snuka who murdered his girlfriend, and he was going to stand trial for it until he died.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, as I said, it's a weird stance to have, and I'm not disagreeing with you, Shred, because I mean, James Mitchell was looking out for his career. Probably he didn't want to be seen as a rat. I understand that, and I mean, if I was in his position, I might have done the exact same thing. I'm not sitting here on a mountain saying, "Look, I would have, I would have done this, I would have done that."
No, but I also can see your point. I can see both your points of like, God bless him, but at the same time, why didn't someone reach out? Kind of.
Let's look at this as well from our perspective. I mean, we are all grown adult males in our 30s and beyond. Let's be honest.
We are. We're grown adult males.
Well, you get my point. I mean, we are grown adult males now. Imagine, say, 10, 15 years ago, someone had acted like Chris Kanyon did towards one of us. I mean, 10, 15 years ago now, would we have reached out and tried to get them professional help, or would we have dismissed this person as being a mentally unstable psychopath that we wanted nothing to do with?
Probably the former. The thing is, I think that because you could hear regret in James Mitchell's saying where he said that I wish I could that I knew what we know now and stuff like that about mental health and stuff like that. And I think that one thing that it has, and I'm going to talk about the positives now because that it has that because the one thing that we haven't talked about was when somebody came up to James Mitchell and said, he's helped me out, and said, why? He says, well, because I'm gay, and I need that person to look at that inspired me, he inspired me to come out and stuff like that. I was just like, well, that's a good thing of what he did, and also the fact that people are using him as a way of discussing mental health issues, because those are important, because there are people who unfortunately even now wait too long to get help. As I said, look
again, we just recently lost Daphne, and she admitted in interviews that she suffered from bipolar disorder and was taking medication daily.
Yep. Yeah, so and the thing is that she did a video not long before she passed saying that she got a gun and she was very.
Oh, it wasn't a video; she was live streaming that.
Yeah, she was live streaming when that happened.
Wait, she was live streaming when she died?
No, she was live streaming the breakdown that she had at the time.
Oh, okay.
Where she was clutching a pistol and she was basically telling people what she wanted.
My brain goes to Boston.
Yeah, she wanted her brain to be studied for CTE. But yeah, Daphne had some unfortunate mental health issues, depression, bipolar disorder.
No.
Yeah,
the concussions and everything just don't help.
Yeah, so as I said, it's just I'm hoping that people. I like the fact at the end they posted a thing for the National Suicide Prevention Line and all that sort of stuff. So hopefully the people who need it can get the help they need. But as I said, the thing that I liked was the fact that James Mitchell said that if he could have a Ouija board, he'd talk to Chris one time, he would hug his. And that made me cry a little bit. Because,
he would hug his ghost, and Chris would say, "Oh, you fucking missed."
Yep. Yeah, and that's how the episode ends. But yeah, wow.
So let's.
I would advise check this one out.
Yeah.
So let's do collective first. So Jose, what did you think of this episode?
I'm not gonna say I can't say that I enjoyed it because I don't enjoy any of these. It's the dark side of the ring. So I thought for what it was, it was very informative. I learned a lot about Chris Kanyon, and me being the WWF guy. I'm definitely going to go back and watch some of Chris Kanyon's matches now and see who he influenced and stuff like that. Dude, he was a pioneer in the business for some people, and that's what could be said about Chris Kanyon. He was a pioneer, and he'll be missed. He's still missed to this day.
Cheeto, what did you think?
I think it was a good spotlight on some of the mental health issues that people people can have, especially in a business like this where people are brought up and they're taught to be, like he came up in the Catholic family, and he's taught gays are bad, and then he goes into the wrestling business at that time in our history as a society, and gays are bad. You can't be gay in the locker room, you can't be this, that, and the other, you can't be at least you can't be public with it. And I also think that it gives us a really big spotlight on people. When people put too much stock in what they need to do externally, when they need to focus on what they need internally, like the help they need internally. And people need to learn to accept that help from just they need to learn to accept that help no matter what the repercussions are, because Chris Kanyon definitely had some issues and he needed help, and there were people around him that could have helped him. And as I said, I'm not saying that they were neglectful or anything like that. I am, however, saying that we have to take this as a lesson in life, that when you see somebody who needs help and they can't get it themselves, because the thing with this bipolar and disorder is that they don't see it themselves. I mean, everybody said it throughout this documentary. Everybody loved Chris Kanyon. He was a great guy, but he thought everybody didn't like him. He was always thinking he was going to get fired because nobody liked him. He was very paranoid about his lisp. He was very, and these people can't see this, and it's but he went to an extreme, and then you have the schizophrenia on top of that, which we saw a lot with James Mitchell, and it's just like we really like, I mean, as a society and as wrestling fans, like it's not like the 90s anymore where we're like blissfully ignorant. Like we really need to encourage these superstars who can be heroes to us even as grown-ass adults. We shouldn't make them feel like if they need help that they're going to be, pushed down the card or demeaned.
Yeah, there's no shame in getting help. Everybody needs it.
Yeah, and I mean, and like Shred said earlier, they could James Mitchell was probably scared to get help for Chris because he didn't want to look like a rat or anything like that, when in all actuality all he wanted to do was help his best friend.
Yep.
And so I really feel as I said, I like Chris Kanyon. He wasn't one of my favorites, but he definitely was talented, and I loved watching him back in WCW when he was Mortis, and then he came, then he was Chris Kanyon and everything like that. I did lose track of him, obviously, after he went, because I didn't watch the Invasion and all that in WWE, because I kind of, when WCW went under, I kind of stopped watching wrestling. So,
Okay. Go to sorry.
So, but just, just take Chris Kanyon's story. Anyone who even watches the episode of Dark Side, take Chris Kanyon's story to heart and realize that lives are at stake sometimes, and inaction sometimes costs people's lives. And and we're hopefully we're growing as a society where we can get to the point where we're like, the needs.
Hopefully, it's okay to ask for help. Yeah,
it's okay to ask for help. Sometimes the need of the one does outweigh the needs of the many, because what the needs of Chris Kanyon was way more important than the needs of the fans. But that's what people were more worried about, including Chris Kanyon. He was more worried about the fans rather than himself. All right, I'm off my soapbox.
It's okay. So, Shreddar, what did you think?
Okay. I can't expand too much on what Cousin Cheeto has said regarding the spotlighting of mental health issues, with regard to the feeling that, about people who are loved, and just to get this feeling that they're hated by everybody. It's not just Chris Kanyon. Daphne reported the same thing. Ashley Massaro reportedly said the same thing right before she took her own life. Same with Hana Kimura. I give absolute kudos to Dark Side of the Ring for the way they handled and put a proper spotlight on mental health issues we got in pro wrestling. I would also double down on that, and I would say I am glad that they did focus on Chris's struggles with his sexuality. This is something as well which might be overlooked by some. I don't think it should be. I think this is probably something else that should be front and center, which is that he absolutely should not have, at that time, have had to hide his sexuality, which may have also helped contribute to his mental health issues. And going forward, nobody should have to hide their sexuality. They shouldn't be afraid that they're going to be punished with some gimmick like Goldust or like Billy and Chuck or Adrian Street, or they're just going to be portrayed as the villain because, purely because of the fact that they happen to be attracted to people of the same sex. So I hope Chris's story can help other people with their struggles when it comes to things like mental health, but also their sexuality. And I hope it opens up a few eyes in the locker rooms where the mentality is still that, for some, particularly the old timers, which is that, we don't want gays in the locker room. Well,
it's a different time now.
It's a different time. And look what happens when you force somebody to repress themselves as long as they did. You get Chris Kanyon.
It drove him mad pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But absolutely, go watch this episode.
Yeah, go out of your way to see it.
Go out of your way to see this one, and go watch some matches of Chris Kanyon. You will be entertained.
And I think we're going to end this with who better than Kanyon?
Nobody.
But I'll say what I think. It was a really emotional episode, especially after last week, which was more. I felt sick. This one was more. I felt positive about the wrestling business, which was, it was that it can raise these important issues and stuff like that. So, kudos. I agree with what both Cheeto and Shreddar said. Kudos for them for focusing on this, and I think that hopefully, the thing is, it is better now because we see that we got Nyla Rose, who's a trans woman. We have what's her name now? The WWE female wrestler,
Sonya Deville. She's gay.
Yeah, she's a lesbian.
Shayna Baszler is a lesbian as well, isn't she?
I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know. I just really don't. It don't really matter to me. But the thing is that WWE still has ways to go. I can't remember the last.
I think they have ways to go on the male side of things. Like the female side of things, I think we've gotten past the whole ooh, lesbians, ooh.
Yeah, you're never going to see that again.
Yeah, I think we're way past that. I think it's like their sexuality is not exploited.
No.
Or even imitated. It's just she's bi, she's a lesbian, whatever,
Yep.
But I still think the WWE has an issue, from what I understand, with the male side, the gay male side of things.
Well, I can't remember the last time I saw Darren Young in their television. I know he came out.
Is he still on the roster?
He's been
gone. He's been gone from WWE. I met Darren Young once. He's actually a good dude. He follows me on Instagram. So yeah.
Well, send him the link to this show.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
But yeah, as I said, last week made me feel sick. This one made me feel some happy thoughts, but also made me sad. So yeah, good job, guys. Anyway, that's all I have to say.
Next week's episode is the
Onita, FMW in Onita. This is probably the first time in at least 3 weeks we won't be saying "fuck Ric Flair."
Yeah, and I don't know. I need to brush up on this because I'm going in a total noob. I don't know anything.
Have you never watched the extreme death matches from Japan involving Mick Foley and Terry Funk?
Seen clips, but yes, those I've seen.
Where it was Dynamite and it's
yes,
where the three people had the Dynamite and stuff like that. This is one where Mick Foley basically caught on fire from a
that I've seen. So so if it's something like that, then I'm vaguely familiar, but. On the person that they're covering, no, I'm not.
And it's basically what Inoki was and stuff like that. He's a legend. You
guys are gonna be doing more of the talking in this one than me. I'm just gonna be giving you my initial reaction. Basically,
I hope they bring up Onita's attempt to bring in Jose Gonzalez and recreate the Bruiser Brody stabbing.
Oh no,
they did that. What?
They did it for an angle. Yeah.
Oh,
Jose Gonzalez to do an angle based on the Bruiser Brody stabbing.
Dude, what a way to end this show. Oh my God.
I'll be honest. Let's be honest. You've already come up with the best way that we really should be ending this show.
Oh my God.
So, gentlemen, if we're ready to conclude today's broadcast,
let's go with the shock face.
Oh no, let's just go out with what it should be. Who better than Kanyon?
Not Ric Flair.
Yeah, not Ric Flair. No. Everyone except Ric Flair. Yep. All right. Thanks for watching. Peace.